Tonight on NewsWatch, Election Day 2013. A look at the different races across the country and how they could have a national impact.
Plus, worshiping just yards from the White House. How one group set up tent and calls on God in the nation's capital.
And CBN News takes a look at what's being done to prevent the growing problem of Adderall abuse. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Local and state elections are taking place across the country tonight. Good evening. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. Today's votes could provide clues for midterm elections next year. Many believe what happens in the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey will indicate what strategies will appeal to voters in the coming months. Heather Sells has more in tonight's top story.
Both parties are closely watching the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. They're hoping the two states will reveal voter attitudes on national issues and help pave the way for success in 2014. The Virginia contest pits Republican and Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli against Terry McAuliffe, the former head of the Democratic National Committee. Both men have tried to tie the other two issues seen as problematic for their party. McAuliffe hopes to link Cuccinelli to Tea Party Republicans in Congress.
While he may cynically want everyone to forget the shutdown, Virginia's memory is better than that.
Cuccinelli, on the other hand, wants to connect McAuliffe with the disastrous rollout of the president's health care plan.
Obamacare, Obamacare, Obamacare.
Today's election could reveal just what issue, the shutdown or Obamacare, resonates most with Virginia voters. Of course, much depends on just who shows up at the polls and how many come. In Virginia, just 40% are expected. Hillary Clinton has campaigned extensively for McAuliffe. And if he wins, many believe it will be a victory for her as well.
This is the first great victory of the Clinton march back to the presidency. It'll be a tribute to Terry's persistence and to Bill and Hillary's ability to build a strategic machine.
In New Jersey, the governor's race has plenty of national implications. Most expect incumbent Chris Christie will cruise to victory. As a solid Republican on solid Democratic turf, his campaign could shed light on GOP strategy ahead and his own presidential potential. So far, however, it's a topic Christie won't address.
I got to govern this state, and whatever the future brings, it'll bring. But first things first here.
Hundreds of cities are also electing mayors today. In New York, Bill de Blasio is expected to become the first Democrat to lead the Big Apple in 2 decades. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Dr. Paul Bonicelli, professor of government and the executive vice president of Regent University, is with us now for more. And Dr. Bonicelli, a lot of people are looking at the 2 big governor's races right now. Right here in Virginia, we got a really close one, and in New Jersey as a blueprint for the future of the Republican Party. Why is that?
Unfortunately, it's probably true. And I think the reason is the Republicans have a big problem. They can't get single women the way they need to. They lose too many of those, and probably in terms of the Hispanic vote, they probably are losing some there. And I don't think they can't fix it. I think it's very easy to fix if they have a clear message and they're unashamed of it, but they need to do that, and they need leaders who are going to articulate that.
Well, I'm one single woman who voted today.
There you
I see
go.
you've got your sticker on, too.
I've got mine.
You know, how important is voter turnout in election years like this one?
This one is probably, like most elections, by-elections or elections that aren't national, low turnout usually favors Republicans. And I think it will happen this time. I mean, I think it doesn't mean Cuccinelli will win in Virginia, but I think that it will help him if the vote is low. In New Jersey, this has been a foregone conclusion for a long time. Chris Christie was going to win, no question. But that's a blue state with a popular, charismatic Republican who proved himself already as a personality as well as a governing politician. And he's popular. And
possibly a presidential contender.
Possibly, quite possibly. In fact, I think it's pretty certain that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. Well, how much influence do national issues like the health care rollout and the government shutdown have on these kinds of elections?
It depends on the election. This one, I think the Obamacare, the rollout of Obamacare that's been disastrous, and then now the thought in everybody's mind that this is a really bad policy that's going to hurt me, average American, is going to matter. I think it could have helped Cuccinelli a lot more if he had been harping on it from day one. If I were him, I would have really made it an issue early on, and he's only made it an issue in the last 5 or 6 days. But it may be enough to help him. People are worried about the promises of big government, and McAuliffe has no positives except that he's not a Republican, and that's not going to be good enough.
Yeah, Cuccinelli has really been hammering Obamacare and his promise to keep doing that. So you think that possibly could turn the tide in his favor?
I think to the degree that he dispirits, with Cuccinelli saying that, to the degree that he dispirits those on the left, those Democrats, those independents who think government really can solve a problem, they can help me, it might really help him. And this will be a very close election no matter what.
Well, in the past, how have these small election years like this one influenced later races?
They tend to give each side, whoever wins takes up the bragging rights. They get inspired. Their folks, their fans, their supporters get inspired. This one might be a little more telling just because you do have a clear image between Cuccinelli, who looks more like Ted Cruz, the Tea Party, and Christie, who looks like the other side. And if Christie wins and Cuccinelli loses, they're going to say something about it. If Cuccinelli wins, whether or not Christie wins or not, and he will, Cuccinelli's side, the Tea Party, is going to feel really empowered.
All right. It's going to be interesting to see what happens tonight. Dr. Bonicelli, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Secretary of State John Kerry is in Poland on this election day talking about NSA surveillance. Kerry says Europeans and others have legitimate questions about the surveillance. He says the answers will come in private diplomatic discussions. Kerry also says outrage over alleged spying and eavesdropping should not upset key trade talks. And after blasting the U.S. for its suspected NSA spying, now Brazil is having to defend its own surveillance practices. On Monday, Brazil admitted to spying on diplomats from countries including the U.S., Russia, and Iran. The Brazilian newspaper Folha first reported the story after obtaining documents from the country's intelligence agency, ABIN. According to the report, Brazil spied on property rented by the U.S. Embassy in Brasilia. The presidential office acknowledged spying took place, but stressed the operations were carried out within the law.
A rare event is just coming to an end in the nation's capital. 40 straight days of worship has been bursting forth from a white tent just a few hundred yards from the White House. Paul Strand visited as David's Tent began to wrap up its second worship marathon.
David's Tent started as a vision last year of worshipers from all over the nation gathering somewhere in Washington, D.C. to praise their God without ceasing for 40 days and nights. But these ministers of music had never planned to end up right on the White House ellipse, within eyesight and earshot of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, just about as close to the center of secular world power as one can get.
The National Park Service actually suggested to us the White House ellipse. And so we just felt like through that whole circumstance that God was screaming at us, I want to be central in America.
Park Service people helped the David's Tent worshipers to be here again this year, and they've already greased the skids for next year, when Hershey and friends plan to take it up a notch.
We really feel like God said 50 days, one day for every state. I've already met with the National Park Service, and they've already given me the preliminary permitting for 50 days next year.
Alexandra McDonald came all the way up from the Virginia Beach area to serve and to sing here.
The Lord has really marked this event, this David's Tent this year, with peace and a lot of favor with the Secret Service, with the park police. Every day we'll have a Secret Service agent come up here and we'll get to pray with them. It's so crazy.
Alan Avery is a regular among the worshipers. He believes there's real transforming power in the praise.
I believe it does change and shift atmospheres, and that's what we're here to do. We're saying God's presence wants to invade, us. Washington, D.C., our world, our state, our nation.
Avery says many believers come by, but plenty of non-believers too, pulled in by the sweet presence hovering over the place.
They just love it. They just love the worship because worship brings people in. And I just believe God's presence is so strong that he can minister to people's hearts whether they know him or not.
And some have come to know him at David's Tent, one in an extraordinary way.
One of our girls one night chased somebody down on the ellipse as they were walking away, chased him down, pulled him back, witnessed to him. He came back the next night and gave his life to Jesus.
Now the David's Tent worshipers want to transform not just individuals, but a city, maybe a nation.
We're just praying, saying, God, help us mobilize the nation next year, that a national call could go out, that literally this city could be redefined and known for a place to gather and praise the name of the Lord.
So as these folks wrap up their second year and prepare to return for a third, their goal is that Washington won't only be known as the world's most powerful city, but as a place where the nation comes to praise its God. Paul Strand, CBN News, the White House.
More than 9 million Syrians are in need of aid. That as the country's 2.5-year civil war drags on. Of those 9 million, more than 6 million have been displaced from their homes, according to a report by the United Nations Humanitarian Office.
I think one thing that's important for a lot of Americans to realize is that many Syrians lived as we do here in the U.S. People had jobs, they lived in apartments, houses, they sent their kids to school, had grocery stores, owned cars, and so on. That was before the conflict. Now the economy has totally collapsed. Many people have had to flee, often in the middle of the night, taking nothing with them. So there really is a sense of desperation.
Violence and red tape have slowed aid delivery in Syria. The UN Security Council is being asked to help ensure safe passage of medical personnel and supplies, as well as other humanitarian aid.
A Christian imprisoned in Iran has been freed. 27-year-old Mustafa Bordbar was released just 3 months into his 10-year sentence. Bordbar was celebrating Christmas last year when he was arrested. He faced charges like intending to commit crimes against Iranian national security. An appeals court overturned his conviction last month, leading to his release. Even so, more Christians are still being jailed in Iran because of their faith, including American pastor Saeed Abedini. For more information on how you can join the millions calling for his release, just visit our website, cbnnews.com.
Coming up, a look at why religious tensions are threatening lives in the Central African Republic.
It's hard trying to make ends meet. Stuck with no choices, I don't like defeat. By my side is where you'll stay. It will be a brand new day. Checking up is easy to do. Here's to freedom for me and you. By my side, it's here you'll stay. It's a brand new world today.
In 2008, my husband Gary departed for heaven. I was still grieving. And then to find out I had cancer, I began praying, God, how do I do this? Where do I do this? Cancer Treatment Centers of America was the place. Dr. Neelam outlined a plan that would take care of my mind and my body, and she prayed with me.
For Bible-believing Christians, we're able to pray with them in a much deeper way as they begin to really rely upon their faith.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we believe in the power of faith and prayer as indispensable allies in the fight against complex and advanced stage cancer.
I'm back in Telluride on the mountain skiing. I feel strong and healthy.
Advanced medicine and technology.
And I am a survivor.
The warm embrace of the Spirit and the power of prayer.
These are happy tears.
Please go to cancercenter.com/faith. Appointments available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
It's hard trying to make ends meet. Stuck with no choices, I don't like defeat. By my side is where you'll stay. It will be a brand new day. Checking up is easy to do. Here's to freedom for me and you. By my side, it's here you'll stay. It's a brand new world today.
The United Nations is warning there is a risk of genocide in the Central African Republic. The country has been in turmoil since Islamist militants ousted the president in March. Islamists are now inciting violence in towns where Christians and Muslims used to live in peace and do business together. Human rights groups have accused rebels of widespread looting, killings, rapes, and recruitment of child soldiers.
For more on this situation, we turn now to our senior international correspondent, George Thomas, who has been to the Central African Republic. Welcome, George.
Thank you, sir.
What can you tell us about this country?
It's one of the poorest countries in Africa, home to about 5 million people. About 80% of the country are Christians, 15% are Muslims. It really is a very difficult country in the sense that, get this, Mark, since they gained independence from the French in 1960, they have undergone 8 8 coups d'etats, 8 mutinies. So this is a country that is constantly in the middle of political chaos.
Is this current conflict turning into a religious war?
You know, it started back in March when about 5,000 Islamists, rebel fighters from the northeastern part of the country, they said they were fed up with the political situation in the capital city, Bangui. And so they marched toward the capital city in the hopes of overthrowing it. So it clearly began as a political attack and then quickly turned into a religious conflict, yes.
Well, we've been told that thousands of people are now seeking refuge at a Catholic mission in Bosangoa.
Yeah.
Tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, tragic situation. The numbers are close to about 35,000 people in this one Catholic church. They have taken refuge. In essence, 100, 200 feet away outside of the church walls, Christians and Muslims have been attacking each other. And so about 35,000 people are now in the premises of this Catholic diocese, and the conditions are deplorable. They don't have access to water, food. The humanitarian conditions are really deplorable.
Well, what has been done to try to stop all this fighting?
Look, I mean, when I was there in the capital city, they all told us you need to be careful. Once you go outside of the capital city, it's basically you're on your own. The police infrastructure, the security apparatus within the country is pretty much non-existent. In the capital, you get a sense that the military, the police is in control. But once you go outside, a different story. The United Nations is talking about potentially sending peacekeepers to try and create a buffer zone and bring the warring factions, separate them, but it's a tenuous situation because for the UN folks coming in, they're saying, we don't want to get in the middle of this conflict.
All right, George Thomas, our senior international correspondent. Thanks for your time, George.
You're welcome, sir.
Up next, from extra edge to over the edge, a look how one popular prescription could be doing harm.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
You may have heard of the medicine Adderall. It's a prescription drug used to treat attention deficit disorder.
14 million young people between the ages of 20 and 40 take it, many thinking it's harmless, but that isn't always the case.
In tonight's Focus Report, Lori Johnson tells us about one young man whose Adderall addiction led to suicide.
Since childhood, Richard Fee lived a storybook life. Straight A's, star athlete, lots of friends. Then he started taking the prescription drug Adderall.
It just changed his whole thought process.
Over the course of 3 years, Richard's life spiraled out of control until his father found him hanging in his closet.
Worst possible thing you could even imagine. I mean, here was this great kid that had everything going for him. Everything. Smart, good-looking kid, and the Adderall just destroyed him.
Adderall is prescribed for people with attention deficit disorder, or ADD. Adderall works on the brain to help them focus better. But some people who do not have ADD believe Adderall makes them focus better too, so they take it to help them study.
Richard had mentioned to me that he had gotten an Adderall from one of his friends at exam time.
He's not alone. An estimated 1 in 5 college students use it, largely unaware of the physical danger and that it's a felony to use someone else's prescription.
You hear in the library during exam week, people asking each other, or I really need an Adderall pill. People do offer it to each other. It's not a big deal to people on campus.
Soon, Richard wanted his own supply.
If you go to a doctor and you just tell them you have the signs of ADD, that without any checking, they'll just give you a prescription. And that's basically what he did.
Dr. Gretchen Lefevre-Watson, a clinical psychologist, researches the misuse of drugs like Adderall. She says it's easy to fake ADD.
If you talk to most college students, they could probably tell you a doctor or 2 or 3 in town to go to and what to say and do in order to get a prescription.
Adderall is a Class II narcotic, an amphetamine similar to cocaine. It can be very addictive.
You can get a euphoric feeling with a crash afterwards.
After college, Richard moved back home with his parents and convinced 2 separate doctors to each prescribe him Adderall.
Yeah, Richard would be up for days, be up for 3 days in a row, walk in the house 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, wide awake. And then he would crash for a couple days and sleep for a couple days.
The Fees tried to get Richard's doctors to stop prescribing the drug.
I said, you keep giving Adderall to my son, you're going to kill him.
But Richard was over 18, and his doctors said legally Richard's treatment was private.
Was actually stayed in the reception area behind the little class partition and said he couldn't talk to us.
Richard's doctors both increased his dose.
You can become more seriously addicted and become psychotic and lose the ability to think clearly and do things that you otherwise wouldn't do.
I'd seen him, he was on the computer, and he had just put little pieces of Scotch tape on his fingers because he didn't want the keyboard to be able to get his fingerprints. Why, I don't know. He covered up the camera on it because he felt like people could be watching him.
During this time, Richard's becoming more violent. He's making threats. I mean, we were scared of our own son during that time. We slept with our doors locked.
Not long after that, Richard took his life.
This should have never, ever happened. And it was Adderall.
People familiar with Richard's story say it illustrates the need for stricter guidelines for diagnosing ADD and for trying non-pharmaceutical treatments before prescribing Adderall.
There is now clear evidence that the medication should be, in most instances, the last line of defense and not the first line of defense. And what the research is clearly showing is that over the long term, the drugs are not as effective as the behavioral interventions.
The Fees want changes, requiring doctors to see what other prescriptions their patients are taking and requiring them to notify parents of adult children who are in danger.
And there was information that they had in their file that if they had shared with us at that time, we'd like to think things would have been different. I mean, they noted in Richard's file that they thought he was suicidal.
They say addicts should find a qualified professional to help wean them off it.
You just don't cold turkey the stuff. You need to be taken off of it slowly.
Although the Fees can't get their son back, they hope telling his story will prevent others from losing their loved ones. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
For more on Adderall addiction and how to seek help, you can find information on our website, cbnnews.com. We'll be right back.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Well, how would you celebrate 100 years of life?
Yeah, this story is bizarre. A man from California decided to celebrate his 100th birthday by doing something he's never done before, skydive. It's something Vern Maynard says he's been dreaming of doing for years.
Oh, I'm not nervous. Why should I be nervous?
All right, can we have you sit down here, Vern?
Yeah, sure.
You're basically all set and ready to go.
I say, let's do it again. My golly, that's wonderful. So I think maybe I have to go back and do this again.
That's amazing. Even though it's his first time jumping out of a plane, Vern isn't afraid of trying new and exciting things. He's parasailed, jumped off the back deck of a cruise ship, and now he can add skydiving to the list. 100 years old.
He must have a strong heart.
I would say
come
so.
on. I don't care. You said he wasn't nervous. Your heart's going to be pounding a little bit.
I know.
Before you jump out of that plane.
Yeah. I can't. That's amazing.
Vern.
Yeah.
You're inspiring.
Thanks for watching NewsWatch. Have a good night.
Good night.